Welcome, everyone, to the Chill Like a Mother podcast. We are here with Roxanne Francis, and we are going to talk today about how sucks. It is a wonderful myriad of bittersweet and loving and awesome and delight and magnificent and some days it just sucks, and there's no other way to describe it other than that.
To your point, so many people sell us this version of motherhood that is supposed to be beautiful and warm and cozy and butterflies and rainbows and fluffy clouds and yes, there are moments, right? There are moments, but it really does suck, right? I remember when we first had our kid and we had our baby in the hospital and we came home, and the entire way home I kept thinking, who's gonna watch us with this kid? Like they sent us home with he can't even sit up. Like, who is gonna make sure that we are okay with this tiny human, right? And we had to try to figure it out, and the not sleeping and the diaper blowouts, and my son had really bad what's that word, reflux. And so there were times, eventually my husband had to go back to work. And one day I was driving with him and he started choking in the back and I had to pull over and like all of these things, right? Nobody warns you about that garbage. All you find are the cute little diaper commercials on TV and people telling you, have a baby, it's wonderful. Well, where are those people when I need an extra 6 pair of hands? Like,
Where are those
right?
people at 3 a.m., right?
Exactly. And again, parenting is beautiful and it can be so rewarding, and you're pouring life into these tiny humans, and they say the cute things, and it's great, and it's lovely, and it can be warm at times, but there are many times when it is not. There are many times when it is thankless. There are many times when you are exhausted. There are many times when you're not getting enough support. There are many times when you don't know if you're coming or going. And it's very, very hard.
I just had like a whole body experience. It's just like my entire body was just like equally tingly and equally like, oh,
Yeah.
no, we are not alone in it. And every person who I have talked to, whether it be a client, a person in my life, a podcast guest, has said almost the exact same thing, just using different words.
Different words. Yeah. Yeah. It's and also to, you parent and you feel like you get a handle, and they're at this stage and you weren't sure about the stage, and you kind of figure it out, and then by the time you figure it out, the next day they're on to the next stage, and what you figured out is now null and void in this new stage, and you're back to kind of flailing about all over again, trying to figure this out, trying to play catch up, and it's very frustrating, and you often feel like you really don't know what you're doing, and you don't. And our parents, God love them, are wanting to support us, but we are bent on ensuring that we don't parent our kids the way that they parented us because they only had so many resources, and we have to be kind to ourselves because we only have so many resources, right? But we're here as they did the best that they could, and we're here, and we're going to do the best that we can, and our kids will eventually get there. Mind you, they may end up in therapy talking about us, but that's okay. Hopefully they pay attention enough in school so they can afford the therapy.
Right?
Right?
I actually will take it as like a compliment.
Yes.
If my child is able to access therapeutic services when they need it, whether it's about me or not.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
That will be like the highest compliment. Screw the how many cavities they have or what kind of job they have. It is like if they can be emotionally vulnerable enough to say to me or to another person,
yes,
I'm needing support because of X, Y, and Z. And if that's about me, we'll have to cross that bridge and accept that when it comes. But just as I intend
Yes.
to give the generation before me the benefit of the doubt, I hope that that same kindness is projected backwards
Yes.
onto me as well,
Yeah.
because I will be the first to admit in any room of parents that I have lost my cool. I have
Yes.
I have done the things that I have
Yes.
tried to break
That
the
we said we
cycle
weren't
of.
going to do.
I have said the things that I promised I would never say. I have,
Yep.
like I have been dysregulated. I have
Mhm.
been ragey. I have
Mhm.
been overstimulated, overwhelmed. And each time it happens, I'm hoping that to my family, I am reducing its intensity, or I am
Mhm.
reducing its frequency. I
Mhm.
hope that that's happening. But at the end of the day, I know that raising children in this exact time frame, having been a parent before the pandemic, during the
Mhm.
pandemic, and now after, I know that they experienced things.
Yeah.
They have already experienced things
Yeah.
from me and from other people in the world that have
Mhm.
likely been harmful on some level.
Yeah. 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 You know, we can't hide them from the world, right? We can keep them in our homes for the first year or whatever, but eventually they will experience beyond us, and we can't protect them from that. And to be quite frank, sometimes we shouldn't have to, right? They will experience the world, and they need to understand what it's like so that they can sort of adjust and figure out who they're going to be as human beings, right? You know, one of the things that I often think is that we need to give ourselves permission to fail, right? So many times there's a book that talks about giving our kids permission to fail, but we need to give ourselves permission to do the wrong thing, to fail, to apologize to the kids, to try to make it up, to know that even just because we fail doesn't mean that we are failures, or that our children are going to fail, or it means the worst, right? We are human beings having a human experience, right? And mistakes, that's a part of that experience. We give ourselves so much grace and understanding for cursing people out in traffic, for um, making huge mistakes at work. Big CEOs lose millions of dollars for their companies and they leave with a golden parachute. Like all these things people get a pass for. But yelling at your kids in Walmart, mm-mm, we're the worst.
The
The
worst.
worst,
Like
right?
the worst possible
Yeah,
kind of human being.
yeah, yeah. And so we need to let go of that. I mean, society will do what it does and it will say what it wants to say. But as moms and as parents, as a community of moms who, support each other, we, as the ones who are raising these children, we have to let go of that. We need to give ourselves that permission because it will really drive us up the wall, right? And it'll be hard to recover from. So we have to acknowledge that it's hard, but you're doing it, right? It's hard, but your children ate this morning. For those of us who have the resources, right? It's hard, but they're still here, right? And so, um, just like a lot of other things in life, it's hard, but we're doing it. We're putting one foot in front of the other. They still love us, right? They still do.
Yeah.
And so, we need to give ourselves more permission. We need to give ourselves more grace and acknowledge to other moms that what you're doing is a hard thing, but I see you. I see you trying. I see you getting it done. I see you. That doesn't
Or I
matter that
see
they
you
ate,
not getting it done.
and you're still okay,
And yeah.
right? We're still okay.
Mhm.
There's no competition between, you know, who made the bread from scratch and who just had cereal for dinner, right? Like there is no
Mhm.
competition. Let's stop making that because all we do is make ourselves miserable. When we make ourselves miserable, We can't raise children who feel resilient in this world, right? So we have to cut with the comparison. We have to give each other and give ourselves grace. And for those of us who do have partners, to ask more of them, dare I say, right? Hold their feet to the fire. You were happy to help me make this kid, so help me raise this kid, right? Like, fold the laundry, go get the prescription, do the dishes, clear the counter, wipe the snotty nose. It's not okay for you to say, I don't clean vomit. Like,
right? Or
these
I
hands
don't
aren't made
do
to clean vomit either.
diapers, or I don't do, whatever, fill in the blank, right?
I don't do fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Ma'am, yes, I don't know. That's not gonna fly, right? It's hard. It's hard. As moms, we still get our period, and if you live to whatever age it is, and you'll go through perimenopause, and your bodies will change, and all the things, and you still have to, look pretty and be sexy, and all the things that they expect, right? What's that phrase that your job expects you to? How does it go?
Oh yeah, society
To
expects
parent
you to
like
parent like you have
you
a
don't work.
job, and to
Yes,
or
do the
work
job like
like
you don't.
you. Yeah.
Exactly. Work like you don't parent, and parent like you don't work,
Yes.
right? And whether or not you have a job where someone pays you, or your job is making sure that the home runs seamlessly, it's all exhausting, right? And recognizing that, um, calling in reinforcements when you can, um, getting some shut eye when you can, because we all over here exhausted, tired, right? Doing what is necessary for you to function, right? I talk to my kids about when I'm exhausted, because they know that when mommy's tired, watch out. When mommy's tired, just do the thing when she asks you one time. So I tell them, I'm like, listen, mommy's grumpy because she's a little tired. And so they eat their Cheerios cockeyed, like one eye, looking at me like, just do what she says. Nobody gets her. Um, but recognizing your boundaries, where your limits are, right? What's going to push you over? Having a little bit of that awareness, of how much you can handle. And there are some people out here who are parenting on their own, single parents. I don't know how they do it. My hat's off to you all the time. But if you have community, if you have sisters, godparents, grandparents, whoever it is that you can call in to lend you an extra pair of hands, do it, because there is no reward when your kids are 21 for being a martyr. Right?
And actually, it's the exact opposite of that. There will be
Yeah.
no reward, and there will be serious side effects
100%.
of that. And
100%.
I'm taking a training on perinatal mental health through the Canadian Perinatal Mental Health Trainings Company. And we had a guest speaker in last week, and it was a single parent with neurodivergent who has some disabilities, who was in the middle of a divorce at the time, or separation. And these words, I don't think I will ever forget them. She said, the people who showed up for me the most weren't the people who I expected. They weren't the actual family members or the actual friends. It was like the mom neighbor down the street who dropped off the next size of clothes that she knew that her baby would need next. It was um, the barista who, watched her baby while she went to the bathroom. Or, it was these moments that required her to be vulnerable, that required her to receive, because the offer was right there, right? The asking wasn't going so well, right? But the receiving, and being able to see the receiving when it came, right? She said, I could have said no to this neighbor mom who dropped these clothes off on my doorstep, thinking whatever thoughts I would have had about myself for accepting them. But she said at the end of the day, it was those moments that got her through some of the toughest moments, was this, like, the ability to receive.
Having those moments, and those moments of vulnerability, it creates bridges, it builds community. Relationships are really vulnerability is the glue, right? Letting people know uh, that you need them, letting people know what you need, being okay to receive help. Um, I mean, think about what it is that our children are learning if we run through this world saying, I can do it by myself or must do it by myself, right?
Or I
That's not okay.
should.
Or I
I
should. Oh my
should.
goodness. I should be able to do it by myself. And receiving help means this negative thing about me, right? That's not okay. It's not okay for us. It's not okay for our kids to learn either.
Can you share like a for example, whether it's from your own life or from somebody who you know who would be okay with you sharing kind of a for example and how this actually plays out in the middle of a nightmare bedtime or the middle of the sixth time in the last 10 days you've been called home because your kid is sick.
Hmm. So, one example is we were talking about uh, just always being. Let me just share this example. So, a friend of mine told me that her mom always had a clean household and that she felt always so awful about herself when her home was often messy. And she had, I think, three siblings, and her mom worked 9 to 5, and the house was always spotless. And I paused for a second and I said, what do you think was a trade off for that? Right? And she stopped for a minute and she said, my mom had 2 heart attacks before she was 45. And I said to her, okay, I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying that a clean house caused that. But think about that correlation, right? And I said to her, what is it that you want for yourself? And she said, well, I want um, a happy relationship with my kids. I want to not feel stressed all the time about cleaning. I want to have a tidy enough household, but it doesn't have to be spotless. And I said, well, there you go, right? Those are the things that we have to, pay attention to because there is a trade-off. We have to ask ourselves, what is the trade-off? Am I willing to pay that price, right? The other thing that I would say in terms of in my household, I have two children. They're boys and they're now 12 and 9. They're going really, really fast. You know, I've been married for 21 years. And my husband is, you know, thankfully we've gone through the stage of, um, you know, he's always believed in partnership, right? And sometimes he catches me, right? I really enjoy cooking and I love making things from scratch when I can, right? But there was a season with work where I was busy and we were just ordering dinner, right? And I think it was like the third or fourth night when I said, I'm going to be working late, you're going to have to order something, maybe Chinese or whatever. And he said, okay. And I just felt this awful thing in the pit of my stomach. And he caught it and he looked at me and he said, what's going on? And I said, oh, I said something like, um, don't you wish that you were back to, you know, Roxanne from the beginning who was cooking all the time? Don't you wish that I was making all these home cooked meals and I feel guilt. Like I feel bad. Like I can't, And he stopped and he put his hand on mine and he looked at me and he said, let's just be grateful that we have enough money to order this food. Just go finish what you need to go finish. Right? Like I'm constantly learning these lessons. When my second child was a baby, and my older son was in daycare part time, I had a friend of mine come over and I almost didn't allow her to come over. And I said, I haven't showered. I'm in my house coat. There's dust all over this place. This is not where you want to be right now. And she said, if you don't answer this door when I show up. She showed up. She brought muffins and my favorite latte. And she held the baby and she said, don't you worry about this dust. I'm going to keep this baby quiet. You go have a shower. Right? And it just gave me permission to be messy and have it be okay. Right? I share things on social media all the time. And I often share things about my family because I want people to understand that I'm in the messy middle too, right? My 12-year-old, all of his friends are on video games, and each family does what's important to them. But for us in our household, there are a couple nights a week where they don't get video game access. And one evening, he was angry, stomping up and down these stairs. And my husband took my youngest out to an activity, but my oldest did not have an activity that evening. He was just really mad. And I gave him some time to cool off. And of course, I was internally rolling my eyes like, seriously, I don't need this right now.
Yes.
But then I called him down and I said, hey, I'm making salmon. Come grab the knife. I'll show you what to do. And, I got him busy. I got him cutting up the onions and all this stuff. And, you know, he really got into it. And after a while, he forgot that he was mad and he was just really proud that he made this meal. And his dad came home and said, Daddy, I made dinner. And, it's just, it's not, it won't always work out okay, right? But we have to be okay with that, right? I've come to realize that life doesn't promise us fun, right? It's going to get frustrating. It's going to be miserable at times. There's going to be times when it's okay. There's going to be times when you feel like you can't afford this life. There's going to be times when you have arguments. As wonderful as my husband is, some days I want to harm him, right? I
Mm-hmm.
have to be
Mm-hmm.
careful about what I say in public. But there are times when it just doesn't go okay, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not worth it. That doesn't mean that you get rid of it. It's a roller coaster ride. Some days it's okay, and other days it's free falling and you're screaming your head off.
Yes. 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 And as two therapists who support other humans in this, can we talk for a minute about that liminal space of I feel a feeling and I want to do a thing, but I know that the thing is going to be hurtful or harmful or I'm going to regret it later. Can we talk about this, like this liminal space that happens between the feeling and the thought and the wanting to do the thing, and
Mhm.
how do you not do the thing, or how do you take care of yourself or protect those around you when that thought and the action feels so reachable, like
Mhm.
it's like right there.
Mhm. Mhm. Sometimes I stop myself in mid sentence, and I'm just like, I need a break, and I just exit the room.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I go outside, even in the dead of winter, and take a couple deep breaths. I have been known to go for a walk on my street. I feel like I live in a safe enough neighborhood, but I've been known to go for a walk on my street at like 10 o'clock at night in the snow because I just need some headspace or else it's going to get ugly, right?
Yes.
Or sometimes I make a phone call, right? Like if I don't have a partner in the home at the moment, I'll make a phone call um, to just breathe. Other times I'm just like, go turn on the TV. Just go turn on the TV. Right? That's gonna have to watch you for 10 minutes while I figure it out, right? Because just because I am a therapist, it doesn't mean that I have it all together. Yes, I might have some tools at my disposal. Yes, I might know how to navigate some thinking traps and those pieces, but I don't have all the answers. When my son developed a nervous tic during the pandemic, right? And I did not have the answer. He was doing online school. The kids all had their screens off. The teacher shut down the chat. And this child is a social butterfly, right? He lives to go to school and play and connect with our friends in the community, and he could not do that. So I had to take a couple days off from work, and I messaged the teacher. We had like 2 months left of the school year. And I messaged the teacher and I said, I'm sorry, we're done. And she's like, Mrs. Francis, they still have assignments and I have the report card. And I said, respectfully, the report card is not indicative of his capacity right now, but I do have to maintain his capacity. So we're taking time off. And I pulled out an old school, like real cameras. I pulled out an old school camera and we went to the park and we sat on the swing and we took pictures. Like we had to find something else to do because something was happening and I felt like I did not have the answer. And so, you know, I'm just mentioning that as a way of saying, even as a therapist, there are things that come up in my life that I don't have the answer for. Last summer, just before the summer months, my younger son, he has asthma and he has seasonal allergies, and he went to the park with his brother one Sunday afternoon, and that Sunday night, he could not catch his breath, and the puffers were not working. And on Monday morning, I took him to urgent care, and the doctor took one look at him and said, "You need to take this child to the emergency room now. Do not pass go, like now." And we were in the hospital for 5 days trying to increase. There was massive inflammation in his lungs, and I felt like my world was shutting down, right? And I had to call in reinforcements, right? My husband was trying to hold me together, but like I had friends who were ordering pizza and picking up my other kid from school and, just corralling, right? Is that the right word? I think so. I think that's the right word. Because sometimes things fall apart and you got to lean into your community and you have to say yes to the help. And it's okay to sit on the bathroom floor and cry. And you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to have the answer. And sometimes that's just how you show up, right? And we got through it, and I'm grateful to supports. And that's the other thing I would say. Be mindful about cultivating meaningful relationships um, because we cannot do this life alone. Sometimes we want to, but it is not advisable. Um, you need community. Your kids need to see you in community. They need to understand the importance of that. Our kids know that if something happens in our home, not to scare them, we didn't do this to scare them, but if something happens in our home, these are numbers on the fridge that you can reach your auntie so and so and your uncle so and so, and of course they know how to call for um, first responders. But they know that we have community and people who care about them. But parenting is not easy, but we do it.
Yes. Yes. Oh, Francis. Thank you. Roxanne.
That's okay.
Roxanne Francis.
That's
Thank
okay.
you so much. I was like imagining your business name, and I know that at one
Yes,
point
yeah.
you
Francis
had
Secretary.
posted
Yes.
on social media once. You're like, my name is not Francis, it's
No,
Roxanne.
it's okay.
So funny. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wonderful spirit and your wisdom and all of those vulnerable pieces. I know that the way that you show up on social media is imperfect and raw, and you have so much wisdom to share, and you willingly share it. I'm just in awe of all of the things and all of the places and all of the humans that are different and better because of what you do.
I love how you show up as well. You actually challenge me or call me higher in my work and how I show up because um, just how you demystify parenting and you demystify motherhood and you encourage us to take off the mask. My friend Pollyanna Reed calls it cyber glitter. And you show up
Oh,
and it's all perfect. I love that you encourage us to just do away with that. Like, this is real life, right? Like, I got a mountain of laundry. This is real life, right?
yeah,
Because it allows other people to not feel shame for the regular lives that they lead, right? The laundry, the dishes, the garbage, the recycling, the yelling, all of it. But also understand that there's love intertwined there, right? There's good parenting intertwined there, and it's messy, and that the mess is okay.
Oh, thank you. Just
Yeah,
receiving that.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. And I think I'm gonna close with this thought. Social media gets a real bad rap. And I think there's a lot of I talk about it too, be mindful of your screen time, be mindful of what you're consuming and all those things. And I just want to share that this right now would not be possible without the power of
Yes,
social
social
media. And
media.
when you use social media or social connections, online connections for good, and you can identify the things that make you feel bad and identify the things you want more of, and you go out there and you curate your social media world to work for you, um, because the algorithm put Roxanne in front of me. And
Mm-hmm,
so while I say to be mindful of your screen time, which is still very valuable, I
mm-hmm,
think there is a lot of really amazing intentional things that can be
mm-hmm,
done when we think about moving through the sticky, the hard, the stuck parts of motherhood.
mm-hmm,
Um, face to You can never replace face to face.
mm-hmm,
However, there are some online conversations that I will never forget
mm-hmm.
because of that intentional connection.
Using power for good.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you.
Love, 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 love that we were able to have this conversation. And I wish you all of the best in the rest of your week.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise.
Bye.